Ezekiel remarks on 4 living beings that came upon him instantly in a cloud. In Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 10, it states, "As for the likeness of their faces, they 4 had the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and they 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and they 4 also had the face of an eagle." Later on in the Bible, Revelation chapter 4, verse 7, nearly the same exact animals are mentioned again. "And the first beast was like a lion, and the second beast was like a calf, and the third beast had the face of a man, and the fourth beast was like a flying eagle." As stated earlier, once the magician has invoked a spirit or type of energy, he has a number of options. The first option is to invoke the spirit into his body. To invoke a being into your body allows for direct communication between the spirit and the magician, and even allows the being to partly control the magician. For this reason, magicians should only invoke benevolent spirits into their bodies. Another option the magician has is to assign a spirit a direct task. The magician may ask the spirit to cause physical harm, feelings of attraction, and discord in other people. He may also ask the spirit to cause changes in the weather, cause disruption in entire organizations, and even find hidden things. Magic of this type, that alters the world outside of the magician, is called thaumaturgic magic. Once present, the magician may demand that the spirit empower a talisman. A talisman, often called a pentacle, is a physical object that represents a spiritual energy. The talisman becomes the physical abode of a spirit or energy that is constantly working to fulfill the purpose of the talisman. The purpose or duty of a talisman depends largely on the spirit used to empower it. Each of the 5 elements and 7 planets corresponds to a specific personality type and therefore capable of certain duties. As with all magical acts, one must never assign a job to a spirit that does not correspond to its nature, similar to how we don't employ mechanics to give us a physical and doctors to fix our cars. To assign the talisman a job involving love and attraction, one should empower the talisman with the spirit of the planet Venus, or the element of water. To succeed in conflict, the energy of the planet Mars is what should be quote-unquote activated at the beginning of the ritual. To become a better author, the magician would invoke the spirits of the planet Mercury, or spirits of the element air. After the appropriate type of energy for the job is selected and invoked, the magician specifies exactly the purpose of the talisman. This act is called consecration, and usually includes a sentence specifically declaring intent. Something like, "I consecrate this talisman for the purpose of increasing my abilities as an author. May this talisman fulfill its purpose without evasion, ceasing its work only when it is deconsecrated." It happens that I am writing this book under the quote-unquote influence of just such a talisman. A talisman that uses planetary spirits should be consecrated on that planet's day and hour. A talisman may also be charged or recharged by the process of thought embedding spoken of earlier, but these talismans are considerably weaker. Sometimes, rituals that increase the flow of astral energy, such as the middle pillar ritual, are used to embed a talisman with intention. Talismans are usually inscribed with names and symbols. The names drawn on the talisman correspond to the names of the spirits who will be assigned the duty of fulfilling the talisman's purpose. In Western magic, these characters are usually in English or Hebrew. The symbols that usually adorn the talisman do not represent abstract concepts, but names. Symbols that represent names are called sigils. These sigils are formed by the use of a kamea, or magic square, which is simply a grid of numbers. To use a kamea to form a sigil, one would convert each letter in the name into a number, and then begin drawing lines connecting the numbers on the grid according to their sequence in the name. Each of the 7 planets corresponds to a different grid of different sizes, and the spirit's name must be drawn using the grid assigned to that spirit's planet. Aside from names and symbols associated with that talisman's purpose, you'll also discover that the talisman itself is made of the material and painted the color that corresponds to the planet or element. Instead of assigning the spirit to a one-time duty or a full-time talisman, the magician may wish to evoke the spirit into visible appearance. To evoke a spirit is to command it to be present in the room, but not within the minds of those present. Evocations are among the most dangerous magical acts and should not be taken lightly. Most commonly, the spirit is evoked into a magical triangle while the magician stands inside of a magical circle. The magical triangle is used as a spiritual container and confines the spirit during the ritual. Sometimes the triangle includes a scrying mirror. For example, the spirit can use the scrying mirror to transmit scenes of other worlds or of ancient times. The spirit may also, of course, project his own image into the mirror. The magical circle the magician stands in is usually painted on the ground and often includes other symbols like pentagrams and hexagrams. The magician calls upon higher powers to command the spirit to make himself present within the triangle or mirror. The spirit must be given some kind of substance, like steam or smoke, to take a physical appearance. Otherwise, the mirror must be used. Once present, the spirit should be commanded to reveal itself in a manner that is not hideous and to speak in a soothing voice, using your native tongue. The spirit should also be commanded to control its odor. It is the nature of some spirits to arrive as hideous beasts with a foul odor and an unsoothing voice. Signs of a successful evocation are a sudden wind, noises, voices, and odors in the ritual chamber. An object bearing that spirit's sigil is placed in the triangle, and this object is subjected to injury when the magician wishes to force the obedience of that spirit. Aside from thaumaturgic magic, or low magic, which uses magic to alter the outside world according to will, there is also theurgic magic, or high magic. Theurgic magic is magic used to change the self. This type of magic is by far the lesser known of the two. The most common ambition involved with theurgic magic is what is called knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. This merger of the guardian angel and the lower self can take years, and this long-term ambition requires a series of rituals which slowly merge the magician and his guardian angel into one body. Merger with one's holy guardian angel is also called the Great Work, and is among the highest achievements of both white and black magicians. Although the term is used profanely to describe the chemical conversion of one element to another, alchemy is another word used to describe this kind of spiritual development. The middle pillar ritual, detailed earlier, is one example of spiritual alchemy. The individual steps of spiritual development are called initiation. Contrary to popular belief, which uses words like initiation to describe an entry into a group, in magic, initiation represents increasingly advanced states of spiritual alchemy. Self-initiation is also possible, but takes much longer. Self-initiation is a series of rituals undertaken by a solitary practitioner that are designed to slowly achieve the spiritual transformation without the help of a Freemasonic or other magical lodge. As stated earlier, a large gap called the abyss exists between the lower self and the higher self. The magician seeks to merge these two aspects of the self by crossing the abyss and bringing himself into unity with his higher self. In Freemasonry, and also lodges derived from the Order of the Golden Dawn, two pillars are used to symbolize this divide between the light and the darkness. Often, a curtain is placed between these two pillars, symbolizing the veil that exists between the selves of light and darkness. There is another kind of spiritual transformation available to those black magicians who walk the left-hand path, often called Satanism. These magicians, using the power of the fallen angels Lucifer and Lilith, are united with both the angelic and demonic counterparts. Human beings who have undergone this ritual of transformation become what are commonly known as vampires. Like all spiritual development, the vampiric rite is irreversible, but unlike the great work, it requires the selling of one's soul to Satan. After the vampiric rite, the individual has no chance of redemption and no chance to enter heaven. From this fact have vampires been rightly labeled the damned. Theories and interpretations regarding the quote-unquote mark of the beast abound in religious and conspiracy circles, but in the occult, this phrase has only one meaning: permanent spiritual transformation. It is said that those endowed with the mark of the beast can easily shapeshift into hideous creatures at will and take on personalities of a more chaotic sort. The fruit of Eden has just as many interpretations and in just as many circles, but in the occult, this fruit represents magical transformation. If you recall, the serpent from the Garden of Eden tells Eve that the forbidden fruit will remake her as the gods. That's quite a claim. Christians have long interpreted the fruit of Eden as fruit of the more literal variety, which is just laughable. And, as stated in chapter 1, the pyramid is also a symbol of humanity's ascension into godhood. The powers of the vampire involve the conscious manipulation and liberty of the astral body. The astral bodies of humans is tightly bound to the material body. Only in the deepest of dreams, in astral travel, and in death itself will the human experience liberation of the two bodies. Vampires can fly the night sky, while their material bodies remain lying in the bed. Vampires may also reach out with their senses and steal life force, and even whisper into the minds of others. In popular culture, the vampire is often seen drinking blood, becoming extremely excited and perhaps animalistic during the act, killing their victim and gaining strength from the victim's blood. One of these popular conceptions is false, another is symbolic, and the rest are accurate. Vampires do become excited when they feed, and do become stronger, but they do not actually drink blood, and they do not actually kill their victim. In the movies and novels, the act of drinking physical human blood is symbolic for the taking of life force. The quote-unquote bite of the vampire is also symbolic for the rite of transformation. Vampires feed in the manner that all vampiric spirits feed, by coming into close proximity to a human, reaching out, and drawing life force out of the target's aura. The vampire extends from himself what are often described as thin, silvery threads, which act as tubes or channels in which to siphon life force from the etheric bodies of humans. So even though physical blood does indeed contain the life force, vampires usually feed on humans that have gathered in large groups. In the midst of a human crowd, the vampire can siphon life force from people as they walk by. This is a common method of feeding among vampires. The astral body of a vampire feeding from a sleeping human is another common method for feeding. Places where emotionally charged humans gather, like churches, dance clubs, and stadiums, are perfect feeding grounds for the vampire. If a single human is under continued attack, that person will begin to feel weak, drowsy, and mentally dull. The vampires call themselves the reborn or the many-born. In ancient Egypt, those who desired initiation and transformation underwent a death and rebirth ritual by being blindfolded and led into the center of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It was claimed that those who died in the pyramid were resurrected as gods. They became powerful wizards called the Jedi, which is where George Lucas got his Jedi. In modern times, the rite of vampiric transformation still requires clinical death. Some vampires are born, and often discover at around puberty that they are a bit different from most people. This type usually claim to have many past lives, as opposed to the human, whose soul is fresh and will only die once. This cycle of death and rebirth is often symbolized with a serpent eating its own tail. The many names